A very good evening and welcome to Biz1st Review 360. Starting off with a look at your top stories, the first Qatar Visa Center was opened in Sri Lanka by the ambassador to Qatar in Colombo yesterday. Also, a Sri Lankan newly appointed ambassador to Russia, Dr. Dayan Jayatilaka, presented his credentials to Russian President Vladimir Putin at the Kremlin yesterday. Now let's take a look at these stories and more in detail.
The launch of the World Bank Group's Regional Trade Report was held in Colombo this week. The event was graced by the World Bank Country Director for Sri Lanka and the Maldives, Minister of Development Strategies and International Trade Malik Samaravikrama, and the Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy.
One of the findings that struck me is that Sri Lanka has a potential to grow its exports to South Asia by more than 2 times. The right ingredients are worked on. While our current exports to the region are about $1.2 billion, the potential is nearly $3 billion. Going by last year's export numbers, this is about 20% of our total exports.
Growth is too low. No two ways about it. But growth in the second quarter was higher than in the first quarter. And the growth in the second half of the year is going to be higher than in the first half of the year. So I don't see collapse. I see inadequate growth, and there's a lot we need to do to improve it, but it's not collapsing. It's actually on an upward trend. It doesn't help when people from Sri Lankans themselves keep saying when the economy is collapsing, when growth is low but going up, inflation is well within the target, reserves are adequate and are being built up. So where is this collapse? I really want to know, where is this collapse? And people going around saying the economy is collapsing are not being helpful. It is an extremely anti-nationalist thing to do because they have to back it up with data. Back it up with data. By all means do that. But the data doesn't seem to indicate.
The first Qatar Visa Center was inaugurated by Dr. Rashid bin Shafi Al Mari, Ambassador of the State of Qatar in Colombo. Starting today, work visa applicants to the State of Qatar will be required to enroll their biometrics data, sign work contracts and undergo medical tests at the Qatar Visa Center. The move to get work visa applicants to complete the most essential part of their visa process in the country of origin is aimed at guaranteeing employees their rights in a manner consistent with their best international standards. As a part of the visa application process, work visa applicants will be required to get a visa reference number from the Ministry of Interior, book an appointment online, and visit the Qatar Visa Center 15 minutes prior to the scheduled time. Located conveniently on the Sri Jayawardhanapura Kotte, the Visa Center is equipped with the state-of-the-art biometric enrollment and medical test facilities.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has expressed interest in ensuring closer economic ties with Sri Lanka, particularly in agriculture, fisheries and tourism. The Russian president made the comments after accepting the credentials from Dayan Jayatilaka as Sri Lanka's new ambassador to Russia yesterday. Dr. Jayatilaka presented his letters of credence in a solemn ceremony bringing together the newly appointed ambassadors of 23 countries in the magnificent St. Alexander Hall of the Kremlin. The credentials were received by President Putin, accompanied by Sergei Lavrov, the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
We now cross over to a short commercial break. Don't go anywhere. On the other side, we will be joined by the President of the National Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Sujiva Samaravira. Welcome back. You're watching Biz1st Review 360. Joining us this evening in our studios is Mr. Sujiva Samaravira. He's the President of the National Chamber of Commerce. A very good evening and welcome to the shows.
Good evening. Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone. So, starting off, sir, the pressing issue that the people have right now, the depreciation of the rupee and the increasing cost of living. Is the government taking any steps towards addressing this? So, first, we will start at the core of the issue.
Yeah.
What is the problem here?
Actually, this is actually not only a local issue, but it's because of the American trade war between the other countries, and we have got affected. And I think smartly the President of America is also trying to get everybody to convert into US dollars so that there is economic boom for USA, which is on their part it is an admirable part. But at the bottom of it that we are caught in between because we are import dominant country. And if you look at our import volumes or the turnovers that you normally pay is for the oil, and incidentally it's for also for sugar. Such an important way of paying our foreign exchange. So, and also we have our foreign debts and foreign bills to pay. So, when it comes to this, what happens is that the numbers that we pay get increased as usual, and that the incoming US dollar revenues are not increasing, because there is no growth, substantial growth, to meet this sudden influx or the increase of this dollar. So, this is a real issue. And apart from that, of course, the other issues such as the cost of living issues will also rise up in line with the increased price of oil and gases and things like that, which is indirectly or directly contacted or connected to the consumer behavior or the consumer items in this country. So, that is in basic, that is what is happening.
But according to the governor of the central bank, Dr. Indrajit Kumaraswamy, there is no economic crisis in the country.
I have that is his view, and he is the governor of the central bank. But we are at the ground level.
I believe he is speaking statistically.
Statistically, and also at a larger level, we can talk at the, he is looking at the whole picture. But we as business people and people who are working for organizations will look at a picture that for us to exist.
The reality of the situation.
The ground situation. And we all know that there is no cash flow in the market. There is a cash crunch in the market which helps, which basically end of the month, closing to the end of the month, the salaries has to be paid, the bills have to be paid, the logistics guys to be paid, the suppliers have to be paid. So, all those bills will accumulate to the end of the month, and everybody needs cash. And as a result of these calamities in the whole world and the increases of the US dollar, the trading has got less, because even the trader or the merchandiser wants to bring an item to sell in Sri Lanka, because of the increase of the dollar, he is sure he cannot be having a profit, and also he cannot supply for the people to buy comfortably. So, that is a fact. So, therefore, we are facing a huge cash flow situation at the moment in the market, which we feel that is due to this effect, because our sales also is dropping. Not only when the prices go up, when we have to increase our margins, when the margins are getting thinner, we need to take it from reserves, because our margins are getting thinner, because we cannot pass everything to the consumer, because consumer is important to us, because consumer can always go to another market. So, we need to also hold the consumer loyalty, keep them happy, and also do our business, because we have to pay. Just because the dollar is gone up, we can't say some employees, no, today we are not going to pay you.
Or we are going to pay you less.
We are going to pay you less. So, we are living in that competitive situation. Governor, yes, we understand that. He looks at the larger picture, but I am talking about the day-to-day running of our organizations.
Now, according to some ministers, this situation is supposed to be good for the exporters, because they will be getting more dollars coming in. They'll be getting more value for the dollars that they earn. Is this statement true?
Yes. Exporters are going to get a benefit out of it, obviously, because your revenues are much more. You are paid in dollars. Whoever is paid in dollars is going to get more. Even our people who are working abroad, if they are paid in dollars, they are going to get more. Right. So, that is something very common which is going to
But then when it comes to the local importers, other than some of our main products, including tea and all that, everything else is imported from other countries. How does this advantage balance out when we have to import, pay in dollars, and then export, pay in dollars? It doesn't balance out. There is no increase in the amount of value that they have for the dollar that they receive.
Yeah, because there is obviously, as you said, there is a import-export balance which is going to affect here. I think it's very sad that we are talking about these things when a crisis comes into our face here in the front. The media is talking about it, the politicians are talking about it, the business people are talking about it. So, the reason is why we have not taken certain steps, small steps forward, in order to increase our revenues to this country. If you look at export revenues, I think the government, I must be thankful to the government. I am also in the initiative, this national export strategy has been introduced, and various other initiatives of bringing a single window and things like that is actually to help and support the exports and FDIs as well.
But there was an issue regarding the single window system as well recently for an express train project. I'm pretty sure if you watched the news reports, you would have seen this project. There were claims, there were allegations that certain ministers had contacted the suppliers or the funders of this project personally and asked for bribes. There were allegations, so a little bit of mismanagement there as well, I believe.
Yes, those things can happen, but I'm looking at the concept of it.
You're looking at the concept, okay.
Right, so when you
it's a good concept.
It's a good concept. We need to have transparency, accountability. That's part aside, park that aside. We are not talking about how this whole export story, if we want to increase it, if we had a little change, looking at the future, expecting this situation to come, then we would have been in a more comfortable position than in a situation like this. So, I think the economist of this country has a great role to play in terms of assisting and supporting us as business people or the people who are working for organizations in order to manage our product portfolio. I feel that there is a lapse also from the economists who have been there, not seeing this and more educatedly looking at it, giving us that advice and the support, so that we could also, maybe product differentiation can happen, lots of things that we can innovate in order to mitigate the effects of this exchange increase. So, that is what I personally feel.
The political situation in the country, how far has this affected this crisis situation?
We are in a situation here that two parties, a coalition is running the country, and they have differences of opinion, which we can see over the TV and various other sources, which is very common understanding of this country's citizens of this country as we are concerned. So, obviously, if we think that the investors are blind to it, we are the biggest fools, right. So, we need to understand all the investors who are having an eye in Sri Lanka is also very conversant about the local ground situation. Whether that person can be at a level of Bill Gates or to a different level, they are watching the ground situation of the country, and which you cannot stop. So, that is their decision. So, I do not think at this moment somebody is going to think, okay, I am going to invest so much millions of dollars, what is going to happen to my money? Who is going to, and especially close to an election era, we are going to have this problem. I mean, it's a common issue. I am not saying that we cannot attract FDIs. We are attracting FDIs. There are lots of companies in the pipeline. But at this particular moment, as I told you earlier, we are all trying to see how we can bridge this gap, bringing FDIs, bringing various, at the last moment, we will not be able to do anything. That is what I am saying. Not that the people are not interested in coming and investing here, but how can you go and say, my God, we are having a problem with the US trade, please come and invest to rescue us the situation. No, they are not going to do that. So, that's what I am saying. So,
because on their part, they are businessmen. Their main concern is going to be, how am I going to make a profit out of this?
Obviously. I mean, any businessman will look at for profits, right, because they need to pay the staff, employment, at least 20% profit.
Mr. Samaraveera, I believe we've come to a very important point in our conversation, but unfortunately we have to cross over to a short commercial break. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Biz First Review 360. Welcome back to Biz First Review 360. We are in conversation with the President of the National Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Sujeva Samaraveera. Sir, getting back to our conversation, we were speaking about the economic crisis in the country and the attraction of FDIs into the country amidst this political crisis that we're in right now. Moving on to a little bit of a different note, coming back after the break, I'd like to direct your attention towards the fuel pricing formula. Do you see this as a positive step towards bringing stability to the Sri Lankan economy?
Yeah, fuel pricing formula, according to yesterday, was what's in the parliament also. They are not sure how the formula
Nobody knows what it is.
Nobody knows it, so I also don't know. But I'm happy that there is some kind of a mechanism to increase the oil prices. There's some kind of mechanism. Otherwise, these things are adopted.
But aren't you a bit uneasy at the fact that you don't know what actually goes in? It could well be a group of people just randomly sitting there and deciding on the fact.
Giving the benefit of the doubt to the government. Is that principally we have a system of advocating the price of fuel, which is a good thing, rather than 2 or 3 people getting together and trying to figure out what they must be doing.
Which was the formula that was there before?
Maybe we don't know even that formula. So, for example, so anyway, that's a
lot of ambiguities.
Ambiguities are there. So, but anyway, coming back to this formula, it is that we are now getting to a pattern. I think we should also now talk about this every first week or second week or something. This happens. People are looking forward for an increase. Now, this is like this lottery ticket situation, right? So, which I think is not very professional. We need to look at a more meaningful situation, at least to extend for a month or 2, just hold on to the price. And also, if I saw some members of talking about fuel prices and the taxes, which I think I'm sure the government is also earning some taxes out of that, but that's fine. Government needs taxes to pay.
Speaking of government taxes on fuel prices, India, amid increasing global oil prices, they reduced the taxes that they impose on fuel imports, and they gave the benefit of it to the general public. Can Sri Lanka make such a move?
Yes, they can, but of course, what I am saying is there are bills to be paid, that I must be honestly saying that the government also has their own commitments to pay, but I think they need to come to a situation where they must also pass some of the benefits of these taxes at this particular moment. I am not saying to do it all the time. If they want to pay their bills, they need the taxes to pay the bills, and we accept it and we understand that. But with this situation, if you do not control it at this level, you are going to have a really, for me, it is a ground level crisis, because the costs are going out every day, and the trivial costs are going out 10 rupees each day or each month. So, just imagine, I was talking to some people, they come from 3-wheeler to a train station and they go back in the train, come to Colombo, again in the night they go back in a 3-wheeler. So, every time they go in this 3-wheeler, just to reach home, they are going to increase 25 to 50 rupees a month, a day, at least 20-25 bucks a day, and then for a month so much of money is going. So, we have to be cautious about it with this whole increase, how the general public is going to feel about it. It's sometimes business people or the top level people living in Colombo might not feel, because what is happening
20 bucks to them?
20 bucks for them. But just imagine, there are people, the children who takes 10 rupees a day to buy their buns in school. So, that money can be spent. So, you have to really look at the whole gamut of society that we live in. It is not that we are talking about here wearing coats and ties, but there are people who really needs that 10 rupees, who really saves that 10 rupees to be saved. So, in that context, this kind of increase is unbearable. It's a fact, whether it's any government official, any private sector man, or any chamber chief, or you will have to feel that. We might not feel it
as much
till
as
100 bucks will go up, and then we will feel it. But the thing is that we are living in a society which is not only Colombo, it is going far beyond Colombo to very rural areas in this country.
But certain government ministers came out and they gave the general public a solution. They said, tighten your belts and the situation will pass. What do you feel about that statement?
Those are all statements. You have to have professionalism in those statements. People can tie up, how much can they do? And if we think that some people are having a nice time, they have already tied up whatever they had to do, and they are now living such a life with the minimum available resources. And I don't think they spend for enjoyment, entertainment. They are cutting down all that costs, because they can't afford to do it. And as companies, we also can't afford to give them an increased wage. It's so difficult, because our margins are eroding, and that's a fact. If the margins are there, we can pay.
Afford.
And because we pay on incentives, we just don't pay money for people. We pay the salary, and if they work harder, they get more money. So, obviously, if we get a share of business and if we get a share of profits, we are willing to share it, right. So, that is the difference between the government employee and a private sector
employee. But when it comes to tackling this economic crisis again, how far do you think that curtailing of government expenditure would contribute towards this?
It's a very important factor. I think we I don't have to explain to you what we see on the roads and what we see on social media. And those are not myths or just fairy tales. We see it every day on the road. So, whether it's vehicles, security vehicles, whether it's logistics, or whether it's super functions, tamashas, all that has to be curtailed today, because people are not looking at all that very positively. Because people are looking at it because they are struggling to live a day, not only at a lower level, at a top level as well. So, we are willing to sacrifice something for the country. We are willing to, as you said, tighten
our
belts. We are willing to sacrifice. As long as we see end of the road or a silver lining for this beautiful cloud that we see every day. But here, we are not seeing those changes happening. We are not seeing any practical change in our life of business, in our lifestyles.
It seems to be going from bad to worse.
Yeah. So, that is where the big question is, where we are willing to support the government as chamber. We will support the export initiative, national export initiative. We are going all out canvassing for free trade agreement, free investment. FDI is coming into this country. We are trying to sell as much as we can, so that we can increase. We have asked for buyers to increase our quotas. We are using the facilities given under the EU scheme to improve our productivity and improve our knowledge and know-how and trying to get some money. So, we are also doing our part, but we really need to consolidate all efforts to make it happen.
But do you see a silver lining at the end of this dark cloud? As you said before, is there at least a little bit of a silver lining towards the end of this?
I see it in a different way. You might not see it, but I see it. If you really learn the lesson out of this crisis situation, we can definitely work things out. I am not talking about any political situation, but if you really understand what happened to us, and we start doing small changes to increase our export, look at our productivity, bring in innovation, all that if you can do, learning from this bad experience that we had, I am sure definitely there will be a silver lining in this cloud.
Do you think that we've learnt from our mistakes of the past, or is it too soon to tell?
Yes, we have learned bitter lessons, but we, as I told you, we have to consolidate. We need to really consolidate our effort. We cannot be working in isolation. We need to put our heads together, politicians from various parties, maybe business people from various ideologies, thinking, communities. Now, it is a time that we should get together, because we are always talking about a national interest here, and we are, if we get together at this moment and try to increase our exports. Now, this is where the major concern is. Every day if you can increase our export and
reduce our imports, of course.
Yes, obviously yes, the cost of imports actually, the number, how much you spend on imports, maybe renegotiating our rates, there are various methods of cutting down costs.
Increasing local produce.
All that, and then connectivity, internal logistics, distribution of food items, cutting down the third or fourth profit makers, having people to go straight to the market. So, all those can be done, and government is doing that, but what I am again saying is, this needs consolidation. We need to get the results, not working in isolation. I think even the ministries are working sometimes in isolation. They do not see
there is no coordination.
There is, I always say that there should be a supply chain coordination, integration in this country. So, if you have that, I think we can learn it from here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sujiva Samaravira, the President of the National Chamber of Commerce, for joining us this evening and expressing your views. You were watching Biz1st Review 360. We will be back next week. Take care and God bless.